Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about how to remember your husband. The first thing I would say is to provide constant opportunity for him to exercise his godly value and authority. So as a wife, you know it's your duty to submit to your husband as you do to God. So it's about providing opportunity for him to exhibit his natural place in the household. As a wife, as a mother, you have a natural place and duty to your family and the household, and so does your husband, and so do your children. So remembering him, the first tip I would give is just provide opportunity for him to exercise his natural God-given place and status within the household. So for example, heading family Bible study is a great one. It can be quite busy, and sometimes your husband can be consumed by his work, by his other duties or life in general, and it's hard for him to manage when to devote that time to head family Bible study and devotion in the morning. So I would give the tip of as a wife, you can help him by arranging his schedule so that he can give 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes at least a day with the family, just leading them in devotion for the day. Another good tip for this, executing this, is to value his opinion. So when it comes to decision making within the household, always give him the opportunity where he can voice his opinion, and it be seen by others in the household as an authority in the household, as a final authority within the household. Another tip that you can try to achieve this is to give him opportunity to look after you and your children, and contribute to that. So sometimes I think very much in the modern day woman, we want to pay all the bills and do everything, have everything covered, which is fantastic and great, which can aid a household because you can also be a helper in that sense. But with that, I would say to just also remember your husband in that and his place within the household, and just remember to give him opportunity to exercise his place to as a provider for you and your children, and never forget that place. So with you wanting to have this wonderful career and wonderful money coming in, as your husband does as well, and to contribute positively to the household, just don't forget yours and his and your roles within that, so that you can make sure that your relationship is always kept God-centered. The second tip I would say is to tell him you love him and show him you love him. So it's very easy for us to say words. I love you, a kiss as he goes off to work, wonderful. But just remember to show that also, and especially in moments where you don't feel he maybe deserves, ooh, that word, to be shown love. It's very easy for us as human beings, I think in general, to just show love when people do something nice or are being nice or kind to us. But it's even more difficult to show love and to receive love when it's in a difficult space in a relationship. So always let your husband know that he is loved, and if there's any discord between you two, it should always come from love. And if you need to rebuke your husband in any way for his behavior or etc., it should always come from a biblical perspective and not from an emotional perspective, which is very difficult at times, because of course when when, you know, when the emotions are flared, we're just, you know, going for it. But I really recommend to just showing love in the true sense, in the biblical sense of what love is, not in the worldly sense of what love is, but telling him you love him in the biblical sense and showing him you love him in the biblical sense also. Step 3, I would say definitely pray for him and pray for you. Prayer for your husband, I believe, is vital. It's one of the things I wasn't doing for years, and I've just started recently doing, and I've seen a change in my husband from the prayers I've been doing on my husband within literally weeks, within the next day even. It's important that we remember that, you know, our husband needs prayer. He, you know, as he needs to pray for you, you need to pray for him. It's going to be a struggle. It is a big job being the head of a household, and your husband will consistently find himself attacked spiritually and other ways as well. He will need God's guidance and God's strength. He will, as a leader, feel sometimes he's on his own, and he's not. He's been blessed with a helper, you, and he has Christ. So you've got to pray for him so that he remembers those little tools God has given him to get through the struggles. Otherwise, you'll find that he finds pleasure and support in worldly support than actually biblical ones, and could affect your relationship catastrophically. So it's really important that you pray for your husband, pray for him everything, you know, pray for his job, pray for his relationship with God, most importantly, pray for any struggles he may be going through, pray for anything that he wants to happen in his life that he feels isn't happening. Everything, put your husband under prayer, because it's only through prayer that he can get through the things that that God has given him in his life to help him to grow and become stronger in his relationship with Christ. Okay, so the fourth thing I would say is to encourage him to share his worries and blessings with you, and if needed, aid him in seeing his strength in you as his God-given helper. Allow your husband to trust in you. So Proverbs 31, 10 to 31. I think I've got that right. If not, I'll put it in the description box. And I'll try to put a couple of other verses as well that that will help just reiterate what I'm saying here as well. So encourage him to share his worries and his blessings with you. I think from my perspective, I think men naturally love to share when they achieve things, because they feel like, yes, you know, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to make my family happy. It's going to be its door opening. I apologize if you hear that. Someone's going out of a door. It's my husband getting ready for work. Funny enough. Yes. Where was I? Yes, encouraging him to share his worries. So I think men generally, from my experience and perspective, I have noticed that I think men love to share when they achieve something, or when they do something fantastic for their family, and it's an achievement, and they're like, yeah, hon, you know, look what I did, you know, kids, look what I, you know, fixed, or something, which is fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And you share in that blessing to, oh, thank you so much for doing that. You thank him, you know, you bless him, you shower him with lots of thank yous and appreciation. But also encourage him to share his worries, because I think with that, some men can fall into the trap of, when they have worries or failures, they don't want to share with their wives or with their family, because they see themselves as a protector, as someone that their family needs to look up to. And if they share their failures, if they share their worries, then maybe not being a man. But remember, your wife is there as a helper to support you. So you've got to be there and show him, give him a space where he feels comfortable and encouraged to share his worries as well as his blessings. Because if he feels comfortable in sharing his worries as well as his blessings, it means every time that he needs someone to lean on, he will automatically come to you and use the tool that God has given him for that specific purpose, and not trust on his own understanding, his own way of dealing with things or making decisions. His wife is there for to consort with on decisions, on etc, etc. So give him opportunity and a space to do that. So don't, for example, don't always it's very difficult, but don't always lynch to the negative emotions. So arguments, for example, if you disagree with something he said or something he did or something he's doing, try and discuss it with your husband in a biblical manner. So with understanding, with care and with love. So never in anger. If you are angry, I would suggest moving away, praying on it for that anger to be released first, so that all that's left is the problem that needs to be sorted and discussed in a biblical manner together. And it's really healthy that a space is developed between you, that you can discuss these things, and he feels comfortable to discuss problems and worries with you. So just create a space by not making it so negative that he feels that he can't come to you with his worries as he does with his blessings. So the fifth and final thing I would say is to love God first. Know your husband more than you do. Sorry, I'll start again. For you to love God. Know your husband, because God knows your husband more than you do. Trust and lean on him to guide you to being the best wife you can be. Now that probably sounds, okay, that's that's a given kind of thing. But I don't think many women in practice remember that. Of course we love God first, but sometimes it's very difficult to remember, because when we see our husband doing something, we're so focused on what's happening in front of us. But if you love God first, for example, when you get upset with your husband, for example, you can't understand, say it's for like, I don't know, not closing a cupboard door, something you've told him a million times, making a bed or picking up a certain thing and he keeps forgetting. I mean, there are lots of more drastic problems than this, but what I'm trying to say is your husband and yourself, but we're talking about husbands here, will exhibit certain traits, certain behaviors that you will never get a hand on understanding unless you love God first. You love God first, you will ask God first, you will trust God first, you will pray to God first. Why? Because God knows your husband better than you do. Don't go to his mum. Don't go to his dad. Go to God first. He will guide you. And from there, that relationship, from your love with God, from your trust of God, from your relationship with God, he will guide you to what your husband truly needs. It may be a time or a situation where your husband may be in so much pain that you don't know as a wife what to do. He may not even be a Christian, and you are seeing him suffering and you don't know what to do. Love God first. Trust in God first. Pray to God first, and he will give you the answer. Don't always look to your own understanding, what you can do, what the people around you can do. Recently, I've had it said to me that you carry the Holy Spirit constantly with you. So just make a decision just like that. If you know, if God has told you the decision, then go ahead. But if you're still umming and ahhing and debating with yourself, it means you don't have an answer. You know, so ask him. Don't be afraid to ask him. Don't get into, I believe it is a slight arrogance with thinking that, oh, the Holy Spirit is already in me, so I'm just going to make these decisions as I go. I do believe that even though you have the Holy Spirit within you, there's nothing wrong with a prayer of guidance to be sure that, you know, the step and the decision that's being made is one that God requires. You know, he does say that in the Bible as well, that just make sure that every step that you're making is God driven. Yes, God driven. So the point I'm trying to make is, I'm sorry if I'm going off track, is that simply your relationship with your husband stems from your relationship with God. And if it's ever a situation, ever, and there will be, in your relationship where you feel that you don't understand your husband, or you haven't got an answer for your husband, he's come to you with a worry, with something on his chest, trust in God. Kneel down, pray with God, encourage him to do the same. It's about providing a space, I think, with these steps where he feels you allow him to be who he needs to be in his godly role in the household, and also allow him space to allow you to be who you need to be, because the union needs to be balanced in the household as God requires it to be. So it's about creating that space between you. So yes, so remembering your husband summed up is just creating a space for him to love, for him to be a leader, for him to be a provider, and yes, an opportunity for that to grow and thrive and become stronger and stronger. So yes, I hope those tips helped you. It's just tips I've learned over the years from my experience with my lovely husband. It has been quite a journey, and it still is a journey. I may come up with some extra tips later, and yeah, hopefully my husband will come up with his tips about remembering your wife. But yeah, these are my tips for remembering your husband, and I hope it helps you in your relationship. And thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe.